All right, here we go. Another True Brew Bobcast here at Cafe Detente, end of Detente Road in Youngsville, Louisiana. Great old friend of mine, Mr. Parrish Taylor. Welcome, my brother. That's some good coffee?
That is some good coffee. Is that what it is, coffee?
It's a latte.
I was going to say, latte is better. So much better.
Parrish is coming via New Orleans last night.
I was in New Orleans last night.
Are the cops like 30 minutes away right now?
Still blurry right now, man. It's still blurry. I had to put my makeup on right. You can't see anything.
Great.
It's good. Coming over from Florida.
Yeah.
It's warmer here than it is in Florida.
Yeah. We're going to cool down here in about 2 days. It's going to be good. Well, man, so Parrish is an old friend of mine, and he's, I say, changed my life with his knowledge and understanding, and he's been dialed into emotional intelligence, or EQ, for a bunch of years now. And so we're not going to do a course on that today. We're just talking it up. We're going to give you all a bunch of information about how to educate yourself on EQ. And, Parrish is going to download on you here before we finish. So don't worry about this being a course. We're just chatting it up a little bit today. So welcome, Parrish. Thanks for coming by, man.
Pleasure to be here, brother. I'm so proud of you and what you got going on here.
Thanks, man. So anyway, when it comes to emotional intelligence and just the whole umbrella of it, your journey started with you trying to find self-help. Do I remember you telling me that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you bring us down that road a little while?
As a matter of fact, I was doing some research, right? So we're going to go back to the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s. You go to the government, Department of Labor. They were defining technical skills. They were looking to give it a definition. Technical skills, right? Job task, technical skills. And they didn't know what to call the soft stuff. And that's how it got its name, soft skills. How to think about stuff and how to feel about stuff. So they just put it all in the soft skill bucket.
And EQ sort of fell into that?
Well, when you look at emotional intelligence, again, Goleman's the one that really brought it to the forefront in the 90s. It's the soft skills. It's the thinking stuff and the feeling stuff. But yeah, it's it came out of that self-help industry. I know I needed it.
You might have needed it last night.
Oh, bro. Well, it was a lack thereof last night. But bro, I'm like most. You graduate from college. I didn't know what was going on in the 80s back at Purdue, and didn't have a job when I graduated. Did the band thing.
You toured with a few big bands, right?
Just hanged out a little bit, yeah, back before they all got big. Lafayette, Indiana was the Guns N' Roses and the Blind Melons and all that stuff. And, after 3 or 4 years, mom and dad are looking at you like, bro, your education, what about all that stuff? And I was lost, like most of us are at that age.
Yeah.
And
a good kind of lost, bro. A good kind of lost.
Searching.
Okay,
Feeling like you're supposed to
right.
be somewhere, but you're not. And But that's when I drank the Kool-Aid, man. I got a hold of some mentors, and they introduced me to emotional intelligence. And, I was about 25 at the time. And I liked the way it made me feel. I got to think about things differently, And then I started understanding feelings. So it's been an interesting journey, 30 years.
Well, you made it your profession, so it's a little more than an interesting side deal. You commercialized this thing, man.
Never saw that coming. When I started the company in 93, we were a marketing firm, advertising. And what we were doing is we were getting the customers to the customer, but then we're closing them. So sales became the issue, right? And that's where the emotional intelligence kind of slid in there. How do you connect with somebody? How do you relate with somebody? How do you persuade somebody? That's emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So that's where we made a switch. We started going into training about 99.
What about old Dale Carnegie, man? I mean, he kind of had some fundamental things. His golden rule's still holding up, almost 100 years, bro. But I think he didn't articulate it like y'all guys did a little later, but he was on the trail.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I never studied Carnegie, right? But you look at it, everybody got this merchandising, everybody saw the class, the titles, dealing with difficult people, all that kind of stuff. But I guess that's the thing for me today is it's a skill based agenda, right? So if you're going to go to a class, so first thing you want to say is, what skill am I developing here? And that's what I like about emotional intelligence. There's 25 skills. It's real clear. So it gets out of the warm and fuzzy and the gooey stuff.
Yeah.
And now you could talk about a skill and a measurable. And so,
So, what are some of the things like if you're in public, you you automatically can tell if someone is not emotionally intelligent. Like we see it on the news a lot. You kind of refer to it as about that guy's mentally hijacked right now, but it doesn't even have to get to that extent. You just see some emotionals go out a little bit out of control there,
hmm
and so what you can see it in a road rage in a car line, picking kids up at school. I mean, give us some examples of that.
well, it's everywhere, bro. It's the old fight, flight, or freeze.
Hmm.
So now we got, why does someone freeze up?
What's the chemicals there? Is it like is it an adrenaline
So
drop?
and again, I'm not a doc, right? But we've got to study the docs, right? So you go study them, and that's what you see is cortisol, adrenaline, the stress hormones. Which that's the irony I get to say it all the time. Stress is actually your friend. Stress is your buddy. It's distress. That's where you're going to get anchored. That's when stuff starts blowing up. That's when the hijacks come. So, half the journey of emotional intelligence is not preventing it. It's knowing what
Control.
it is. You
Knowing
know,
what it is.
a lot of people get stressed out. You put a microphone in front of them.
Hmm.
Same thing, right? Just knowing your stressors.
Yeah.
But we pay good money to get stressed out, right? Think of roller coaster rides, motorcycle rides. Those are all stressors that we like. But we're all living in crazy times these days. We all got family stuff and career stuff and financial stuff that'll really stress you out.
And man, I stay away from politics and religion at the cafe, but man, it just seems like that saying, "Who's shaking the jar?" It's like these from the news media to everything that we inundated with on our phones, and I mean, that's why I started this to get away from all that. But it's like they know what you're talking about on EQ. They know the triggering things. They know the power of that when people are at a heightened state of fear and anxiety, and they make decisions that they wouldn't normally make. And I just feel like we're in that fog right now.
Dude,
You feel the same way?
absolutely. Again, there's new studies out. You follow Goldman. He's going to talk to you about, we're smarter than we've ever been. I mean, we got kids coming out of college, IQ's off the charts.
Brainiacs. Yeah.
IQ, right? But the EQ is deficient. So those skills are deficient. You see it on the headlines. The interesting part about it, Bob, is because we can talk about both sides. We can talk about the negative side of it, the hijacks, behavior, distress, but go to the other side of positive mental health. What are those activities? What is meditation and breathing? That's all emotional intelligence on the good side of the house. Even going to athletics, when you find show me a goat, pick a sport, find me a goat, and what you're going to find right there is that individual is regulating their internal stuff. So whatever the thinking stuff and the feeling stuff is, which is emotional intelligence, you could also tag it on high performance, leadership, right? Tell me a bad boss, and we can say, well, he may have known processes and procedures, but he lacked EQ because of the way he treated people. Show me a good boss. You say, well, man, he handled himself well. Well, that's EQ too. So we see it every day. It's just not negative.
Hey, look, I know it, and as far as for it changing my life the little bit that you blessed me with over the years, it doesn't come easy. I can speak for myself. You know, I read your books, I've been to your seminars, and you spoon fed me through this, and it absolutely helped out. But I can tell you, it wasn't it wasn't a natural take. But eventually, I did it. And what I mean by that is that Parrish goes through just fundamentally what a thought is, and correct me where I'm jacking it up. So, thought is just photographs, pictures, and words. That's it. And they just flipping through your mind. How many do we get a second on average?
The average 5 to 16 a second. So
Five or 16,
a
either
second.
Polaroids flipping through your brain. And they coming whether you want it or not. And so you're sitting there, and our job is to manage that.
Absolutely.
And man, it sounds simple, but I tell you, it made me feel. It scared me at first, PT, because I'm like, man, I'm realizing that this brain right here is processing things and it's detached from who I am in my body. Like I was confused that my brain and my thinking was who I was. But the brain is just a little alert alarm system that is telling your heart and soul sort of what to do. But speak on that a little bit on just those photographs and words and thoughts.
Well, and it is. It's just complicated. So for us to sit here and talk about it and talk about the journey like you had or I had or anybody that does it, it's going to be one of the most difficult journeys you take.
Yeah.
Getting on the inside, most people call, this right here a scary place, right? So when you started looking at the white paper and the research and memory, how we store memory, it's words and pictures. And so, I'm reading all of this stuff, and you're looking at emotional intelligence, and it talks about emotion, it talks about feeling, it doesn't talk about the head. Now, that's the way you get to regulating your emotional intelligence skills is by paying attention to your chatter. So I had to, when I got a hold of this stuff back in the 90s, this was a scary place for me. I mean, we all said, can I just shut it off? I just need to shut it off for a while. I'm tired.
And you refer that as chatter.
That's chatter. So if you can grasp, and the chatter is really the foundational building block to all of my other programs. So once we understand what chatter is, like you have that awareness, you're literally building the skill of introspection. That's when you get 25. So again, not to get too far in it, but you got 5 sets. The first three are you and me, man. What are you and I doing inside self-respect, self-monitoring, introspection? These are all skills that we develop. A lot of times just getting through the family, coming up as a child, maybe mom and daddy. They install that in us, right? But then that fourth and that fifth, that's that leadership. So now we're in the we world.
We
right?
world, yeah.
And that's what you find is you've got to be able to regulate your chatter. Like we work with cops, right? You got an active shooter. I don't know how many times we're talking about a stand down active shooter and they'll unload 2 clips before they even realize, well, take a break. And not even realize what they just did, but they just put 24 holes in that van over there.
That was there. That's an old primitive thing coming out right there, right? The old
Fight,
fight or
flight, or
flight.
freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Fight, flight, or freeze.
that's what it is. That's how we, in the 70s and the 60s, that's what we knew it as. But one of the game changers, and I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but was our medical technology, neurology. Let us see the brain think. We can now anger and all these 200 emotions that psychology says have patterns in the brain. And so again, it opened up a whole new
So you said they identified 200 emotions?
psychology. A lot of, I think, again, it's changing all the time.
But
mankind.
that's a lot, bro. I mean, might name 25.
Well, that's the case with most of us. We have a very limited vocabulary of what are all those emotions
But we
are.
recognize a lot.
Well, we know the big ones.
If somebody brought an emotion up, they would say, I would say, okay, I see that.
I tell you, we teach it in the class. I got an emotional wheel, and I mean, like rejection. There's a lot of words that we use that sometimes, again, just depend on your vocabulary. But here's the unfortunate side about it. And again, I'm speaking from the docs. First, if you're human, you're going to feel every 200 of them. They all have a function. So, again, how intelligent are we really about these 200 and how we feel all day long? Which all roots back to chatter. If we can get someone to understand what chatter is, those words and those pictures, and now you're on task, maybe it's a safety critical task.
Yeah.
Right? So now my mind's going to drift. We know it drifts. Bringing that back.
Flexing it up.
That's really been a monumental, for me, serving the marketplace and my clients. Taking a guy that's got a GED education. He ain't no brainiac, right? But he's my top guy. And he's been with me for 20 years. I can help him get a hold of his chatter. And as a result, we make better decisions and performance goes up.
Just to regress a little bit, because we went from 0 to 60 on some of that stuff. But what helped me, I'll tell y'all what helped me on understanding thoughts. So Parrish asked me this when we first met. He says, tell me what you had for breakfast. And I'm like, bacon and eggs or waffles or whatever. And he says, well, how did you retrieve that? And I'm like, well, because I know what I ate. No, but how did you retrieve it? And he got me to think that I actually had to come up with the picture of the eggs I ate and retrieve it where it's flipping in my mind to tell you what I ate. And if he says, okay, what are you doing next for Christmas in a couple weeks or a couple days? And so I know what I'm going to do, but I have to come up with a photograph or what I think it's going to be to let you know I'm cooking gumbo and I'm going to have people over and my kids are coming in. And so that's the two. And then right now I'm sitting right here, me and you engaging, and that's the now. And so, so the 16 per second photographs coming in from the past or the future or whatever. So when somebody's worried to death about something, they have photographs coming in, they making shit up, just coming through, and they just scaring themselves. And then when they nervous or anxiety, they thinking about something that happened to them or something that did, and it goes back and forth. And is that like the baseline of anxiety, man?
Well,
chatter, is that?
Well, if you get into the way God built us, and the chatter, when you start looking at the brain in itself, this is how we teach it, right? You got the emotional brain, you got the thinking brain, right? So there's a master-slave relationship right there. So when you let that chatter rumble, that emotional brain's sitting right there listening. And that's where, again, our stress response system can actually start working against us because we're sitting there worrying all the time, right? Coming up with these words and pictures, whether we're what-ifing about tomorrow, or we can, PTSD. Let's rewind the game tape and let's talk about a trauma. And that word and that picture is still there. How are we going to rewire that? So it starts with chatter, right? Can't erase it, can't purge it, but we can rewire it. We come up with some new words and pictures that minimize the stress that's associated with the event. It's crazy, bro.
No, it is. So before we talk about that, man, this is a little sweetener. My buddy, so my brother-in-law goes to Maker's Mark. Okay, and they have all these barrels that's brewing up this great bourbon where they're able to put these what they call staves. It's these little pieces of wood with different like flavoring in it, and so they do these little tests to flavor his baseline Maker's Mark, and so he was able to design his own Maker's Mark, and this is it right here. I got it for Christmas.
I'm still working on
Sweet
it.
little sweetener.
I'm still working on the Angel's Envy. About got that bottle done. Huh?
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. Remember?
Was it good?
Oh, no, Angel's Envy.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Boy, that made it a little better, huh?
Whoa.
Okay, so Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods,
Goats.
goats.
Regulating
Okay.
the internal states.
Regulating Bruce Lee, people like this that can just dial it in, compared to someone with questionable, arguably more talent, can hit a ball longer, further, and with no pressure on them, they can probably beat the goats on a regular day. But pressure, you got a million people on following you, bunch of people in the stands, TV cameras everywhere. All of a sudden, that pressure is crock pot on.
Just depends on who's, again, level the playing field. Physical features, same equipment, but whoever has that mental and emotional that can regulate those pressure points. And you talk about, think of basketball. Think how fast the game is, right? Just like you said, Jordan. Again, you're regulating it as fast as the game is played. Now go to baseball,
Right.
right? Go to any athletic competition. It's really who's going to be able to regulate, and that's what sports are all about.
I know,
Who's showing
man.
up? That's
I
how the
know. And
underdog
sometimes
wins
it's
that day.
one play. It's one play sometimes.
What we're
So
saying
bring us into that. Bring us into a clutch player's mind. What are they? What? Explain to us, how are they emotionally intelligent? They want the ball. They want to make the shot. They're gonna make it. Larry Bird. What is he thinking?
Well, it's what they've already thought so many times before that shot.
Okay, go into that.
Well, it's visualization. I'm working with a 14-year-old right now virtually. He's a baseball player up in Boston. And I'm learning from him as much as he's learning from me. So reflection is when we take the words and pictures and go back. So times past, we're going to reflect. What we normally do is bring the poor behavior forward. So
You're dwelling on.
You're dwelling
you
on it.
striking
So
out in the little league.
now you know, and you got words and pictures, and that's going to flash. So now you're going to rewire that. And what we teach athletes is give me your personal best. Take me a time when you outperformed even yourself. You wowed everybody.
Your best day.
So you're gonna cement that through visual. Again, reflection goes back, visualization is going forward. So when you got your goats like Bird or any of them, and you'll hear this, they think about it so much throughout the day. It's so emotionally intense to them. They're seeing themselves win in their mind before we see them on the court. So that's what a high-performing athlete is going to do. So,
So is that communicated as confidence?
confidence is an emotion that is a derivative of the right chatter. When you have the right chatter, the right words and pictures on the task, the emotional response is confidence.
But like, okay, so Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan till you get punched in the nose. So they're very confident going into the fight, and then Mike punches him in the nose, and then all of a sudden that confidence kind of drifts away. Where Mike's the other way. You know, he might get banged on a good bit, but he has a deeper emotional training. Maybe that's a bad example, but you know, fighters or MMA all that stuff. It seems it can go layered.
Here's when you get that down to it. We're getting down in the weeds now. What you're talking about is millisecond to millisecond decision making that creates the brain-body sync. So again, think of an MMA fighter. I mean, they're moving fast, right? They're responding, but they're trying to get their martial arts working. So again, the brain. Think of a deck of cards. Remember when we got the deck of cards and I flashed a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how fast your brain's processing. It's
Yeah.
almost hard to believe. That's that chatter, right? So when you're watching an individual perform a task well, that's what we know. They got the brain-body sync going on, and they're making decisions as fast as those cars are flicking.
Like Jordan says, the game just slowed down for him.
You see it all the time. So think of the movie Matrix.
Yeah.
He's on top of the building. They're firing,
Yeah.
and he's doing that slow motion.
Yeah.
That is real evidence. So when you go and I work with my military guys, or I
Yeah.
work with my law enforcement,
Yeah.
you'll have a heightened sense of awareness where it's more than just the movies, and you'll hear them say that everything just slows down. I mean, even like for baseball, I mean, you got a 95, 100 mile an hour pitcher coming in there. We're teaching those batters to find the release and track the seams. That's the focal point, right? Slow it down. Slow it down. It's all happening inside.
So, very few people are professional athletes. So how do we? What is your go-to for, the common man and woman trying to slow their life down a little bit to enjoy it, to find a little peace, to sort of regulate this chatter? What's the 101 fundamental thing that you go to when you first starting with an adult? And not necessarily adult, it can be anybody.
Yeah, well, breathing. The importance of breathing, because breathing brings the emotional brain. It calms you down. We all know and have heard it works. Maybe it works for you. But the real easy catch is, okay, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You can't get back to sleep. Let's try your breathing exercises now, right? Versus in the middle of the afternoon, you're about ready to blow a gasket on somebody. You still want to do your breathing exercises. You're getting ready to go in and you need to perform well. It's time to do your breathing exercises. You're in the sales pitch, listening. You just asked a question. You're supposed to be listening, not thinking about your next question. You're breathing. Breathing, what we now know, it's not just breathing, it's the oxygen. And you got to make that point really, really clear. When I teach cops, it's like, well, breathing works. Why? Why does breathing work? Oxygen back to your thinking brain. When you get that oxygen and that blood flow, what it does is it really turns the emotional brain down and turns the thinking brain back online.
Go to 4-barrel carburetor.
Key is, and I'm just quoting Goldman. His new podcast just came out. You got to do it 6 to 9 times, and here's the key: long. So when you're going out, when you're exhaling, it's got to be a long exhale. When you're breathing in, it's got to be a long intake. You do that 6 to 9 times, the way the body's built, you will have a sense of calming. Is it enough for the moment? All this is about clarity of thought and decision making. That's all this is. That's all this is. If you bring it down to the penny moment, it doesn't matter if I'm parenting, if I'm a boss, or I'm a goat out in competition. It's clarity of thought and decision making.
Yeah, and so many people just get nervous and they nervous talk and they just start talking to fill space. And
That's an indicator.
That's an indicator. And they get more nervous and then they talk more and then they yamble and dig themselves a big old hole. And if they can just switch it to, as soon as I want to say something, be quiet, that's the same thing as breathing. And wow. Yeah, no, it's
So I've got this,
fascinating.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm excited about this 14-year-old I've been working with. Again, he's a baseball player. So there's 4 things you do with baseball. So, and it's snowing up there. So that's one of the beautiful things about the brain is it doesn't know the difference between sitting in your locker room in your imagination or being out in the field. The brain conceivably does not understand the difference. So right now we got him doing base running while he's sitting on his couch, visualizing. We got him hitting. I said, how fast he's about ready to go to high school. I said, how much gas they throwing in high school these days? About 84, 85. I said, well, how fast of a pitch you want to hit? He goes, man, I like it about 87. I said, well, you need to see 87. So you're sitting there and you're going through your visualization. You see the picture, words and picture, that's shatter. You're going to see that release point and you're going to see 87. And then you're going to see that ball hit that bat. So that's what we see with athletes is they see it before we do. And it's us to chatter.
Yeah, and so I met you even when my kids were younger, and the visual exercises I took to parenting. So I was like, okay, what do I want out of my child? And the first thing I did was remove like athletics or anything like that. I went to more of a virtue
Hmm.
deal. I want them to be a kind person. I want them to be a reliable, truthful, those things. And so my visual techniques, you talking about seeing seams, I'm trying to visualize myself. What do I do? I have to become virtuous, and I have to use some craftsmanship to
Hmm.
teach them and hold them to a standard. And it's the same thing. You're using the same skills. I mean, when you're
That's
young, you're
exactly
hitting
right.
a baseball. When you get a little older, now you're parenting, and you might do it for golf or whatever, but you do it in business. You do it as a leader. You do it
It's
as
everywhere.
everywhere. Just a human being, bro.
It's everywhere.
You know.
I mean, that's one of the cool things about what I teach. Is like, look, I'm going to show you where you're using it already every day. You
Mhm.
just, I'm going to give you a name to call it. But most of us, they got a lot of balls in the air, right? Whether it's work or family or, the finances, and you're able to maintain a healthy lifestyle, you're loaded with emotional intelligence. You just don't know it.
No, it's true, man. And you can go as deep as you want, but you really don't have to. One thing I want to get with you on is this. Uh, because people's brains are a little different. Like my wife diagnosed me with ADD. I had no idea. I used to think it was some crazy things, and it wasn't until we was married for years. And she's a physician, so she's qualified to do it. And she's just like, "You don't know you're ADD, bro?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what do you mean?"
Right. Right.
And
It's a lot of chatter.
I crawled through college because I couldn't read 2 pages without my mind just jetting off into some crazy thing. So, but it wasn't so much chatter. It was more, I guess, it was the photographs coming through. It wasn't gnawing on me. It was just floating around. And so uh, when the last few years I've been sort of research mode and listening to like people like Muji and people who really some yogis and things that really dial in and show the importance of true meditation.
Hmm.
And I tried it and it works. I wake up real early. I do it, but it's the same thing as me trying to read a book in college. It reminds me. But then it goes back to the 6 cylinders that you taught me. And so instead of me trying to think of one thing breathing to calm me down, what worked better for me is to take inventory of my 6 cylinders. And I think that's close to meditating. But you're
Absolutely.
organizing yourself. But if your brain's wide ass
Yes.
open, sometimes you just gotta. And I'm speaking for myself. Organize your closet.
Absolutely.
Am I missing it?
You're nailing it, and that's some of the things that we've seen recently. Again, the more we introduce it to people, we get feedback. We're talking about that six-cylinder list. There's so many values there, but when the mind drifts, like it will, it's something to bring it back to. So every time you bring a wandering mind back on task, every time you bring your wandering mind back to your cylinders, you're literally strengthening the skill of concentration. Most people never even heard that. We know the mind drifts. Oh, get upset, right? Every time you bring that back and put it on something, put it on your cylinders. It's a checklist for you, but you're also developing your emotional intelligence skill of concentration.
That helped me the most. Just what you said right there. And when I started the cafe 3 years ago, Parrish taught me about a flex. So when your brain starts going where you don't want it to go. So I was getting agitated looking at the news. I was getting agitated at a bunch of things, and all of a sudden I'm this person I don't want to be. I'm talking bad about other people. I'm doing the wrong things. I'm thinking the wrong
Bad
things.
chatter.
It was bad chatter. And so the flex is that, if you don't have something to replace the bad chatter, it's the exercise of the bottle in your hand. It's going to come right back.
Right.
You're going to say, "Go away, bad thoughts," but if you don't have something to replace it, it's going to come right back. And so what I did is I said, "Okay, my good thought is the cafe." And so as soon as that bad chatter would go, I would whip out a book and start drawing. I would draw. I would draw this and what kind of bridge I
And
want.
look at us now, man.
I want this, and then but it hadn't stopped. Once I got to certain points, now I'm starting a newspaper. It's just. But if I don't do it, dude, I'm serious, man.
Hey.
It's like you can find you. I can see where people can find themselves in a funk.
Yeah.
Huh? Do you see that in your business?
The words and the pictures get going negative long enough. The emotional brain's going to respond to that. That's that funk. So, I'm triggering. I forgot about the flex. You call it the flex. So, so many people fail because they use not. We're not built to not. I'm going to not smoke. All your New Year's resolutions.
Right.
You have to, in the concept of flexing, you have to think about what you do want. You have to rephrase it, literally your words to what you do want. So, meaning, I'm not gonna smoke. What's your brain hear? Smoke.
Not smoke.
Yeah, it doesn't hear not. So you have to rephrase the words, restructure words. Well, what are you going to do? And so anytime, let that be a trigger with you. You're ever talking to somebody and they say, well, I'm not. Whoa. What are you going to do? Rephrase it. It's so critical. It's like what you're talking about. Got to get the bad words out, get the good words in. Same way, I got to put what I am going to do. So I'm going to start breathing clean air. I'm going to start chewing a toothpick. You got to talk about what you're going to start doing. So many times when you want to stop something or remove not from your vocabulary. Just
instead of I'm not going to eat as much.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to say I'm going to start eating clean. I'm going to eat clean.
Well, you said as much. So again, smaller amounts.
Or more than that for me it'd be I'm going to eat clean.
This is huge. Now this is what we want chatter to be. Right? You got a choice with your chatter. That was the takeaway. So now that I understand what chatter
16's coming.
It's a human factor.
So is it going to be, are you going to train it to be good ones or destructive ones?
Absolutely. And that's a skill. Scale from 1 to 10, 1 piss poor, 10 top notch. So now it becomes a question of how proficient are you? And my cops taught me that. It's like, wow, no, you cannot be a cop and deficient in some of these skills. You're absolutely right. You're going out to de-escalate and you haven't learned how to de-escalate yourself.
And a lot of the public is trying to trigger you. They want you to do something. So man, I tell you, those cats have it.
Oh man,
have it.
You talk about our blue?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This has been this craziness with defund stuff, and it's coming back. I've had the privilege, Arizona. We got out in L.A. We've got some. There's some really. They're just us, man. But they chose to put a weapon on to go to work, right? But that industry is void of emotional intelligence. We had a New Orleans sheriff down there I did a lot of work for. But typically, you do not find emotional intelligence training in law enforcement.
You jumped on this train too. It started early in my career. We applied it to safety. Mm-hmm. And safety in the workplace, and we called it behavior-based safety, which we still do. And basically, you have someone observing someone working, and because they're watching them, then they can act better because someone's watching them, and then they take all of these notes, and both the one watching and the one being watched has some value tied to it, and the stats showed it worked really good. But, there's an old Harvard study that 67% of safety is based on your attitude.
Chatter.
You can be trained all you want, you can be dialed in, you can be all that, but if Johnny had a bad day at home when he left the house with the missus or a child or something, his attitude is adjusted when he's there. His mind is somewhere else. His mind is not. So I think EQ is sort of that bridge there.
Yep.
You gotta have some emotional intelligence to behave a certain way when you're in a certain place, but not just that you're acting, that you really need to adjust that brain. Is that right?
Absolutely. We've said the word a couple of times. You just said it again, but it's all behavior. I can tell if you're emotionally intelligent based on your behavior. So I don't know where you're at with that word. I came up on a farm, oldest of three boys. If somebody was going to talk about behavior, there was a butt whipping coming right behind it. So it was never a good conversation to talk about behavior. I had to do a 180 on that. So here I am, 57, and it's all about behavior. Any one of the 25 skills, again, high performers, how they behaving. Or those that have that hijack and show their ass, how they behaving. Tell me a good boss. It was about their behavior. Tell me a bad boss. It's about how he handles stuff, behavior. So that word really becomes a word we embrace now because I want to behave. Like you said, how do I, from a parenting perspective?
Old school, we used to say, "Man, that dude got his shit together."
Right?
And I'm
Right?
like,
I want to handle it like that.
I want to know why
Yeah.
Harold got his shit together, man.
That's
And Harold had it figured out. He was emotionally dialed in. Now somebody, I mean, it's hard to figure that out on your own. You got a cool uncle or somebody that brings you in, or somebody you're emulating, or something, because it's not a natural skill to pick up on.
Not at all. And that's what actually comes up with Goldman and some of the latest research is real-time feedback. Being able to get that feedback from somebody, again, you got a good relationship. Hopefully, you get honest trust there. And I mean, I'm seeing it more and more. You see people, hey, now look, we're gonna go into this meeting, man. If I start blowing a gasket, we need a signal or something. So I can bring you back down, or if I get hijacked, you're gonna bring me back down. So they're doing that, or they got the signals, right? Peer checking. That's all we want, man. We want more folks emotionally intelligent. If we had more folks emotionally intelligent, the world would be a lot better place, man. You know what I mean?
I tell you, my whole workforce was trained on it, and it's something that you got to bring it back to them on a regular basis. But you're correct, man. If you're in a room with people who's been trained in emotional intelligence, a whole nother level of conversation that, you know what I'm saying? That
Well, yeah, you can work typically. Some of I mean, even us, some of our most dearest relationships in the marketplace are with clients that we got sideways on something, schedule, budget, but we were we handled it. We found the common ground and the compromise, and we overcame it. And we still liked each other in the end, right? So again, emotional intelligence plays out.
Well, one of the first things is not to take anything personal. Like all my salespeople, I sit them down especially when they're young, and like, look, rule number one is don't take anything personal. That guy can chew you out, woman can chew you out, or make you feel bad, or make you feel, you know, terrible about something. And if you go in your car and you banging on the steering wheel because they got to you, you don't know the whole story. They had a bad day, something was going on. There's no way it was because of you. You were at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so I find human nature is always, if someone has persistence and tenacity, then that person who was mad always tends to come around when they realize that you're there, you have emotional intelligence, and you want to help them.
Yes, I mean you said so much right there. I mean, the one emotional intelligence skill that is delayed gratification. You talked about that persistence, that tenacity, delayed gratification, right? Being able to wait on it, be able to be patient.
So where does the ego come in?
Ego management is out of the
Because
five.
ego, look, man,
I mean, that's where you
if
get words like narcissists, right? When you get an individual that thinks a little too highly of themselves, they put a little bit more value on themselves, shows up in the behavior pattern. Right?
I think that's the, and maybe it's all we're talking about all the same thing is controlling your chatter and this and that, but man, an ego, human beings have some. That's a strong, powerful thing, man. An ego, it can make you do some undesirable decisions. You know.
Starts with chatter, right? Starts with the words and the pictures. Maybe inflating it a little bit more than what it really should be.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to feeling a certain way. And, that TEA model we come up with, you really understand somebody's
Talk about
action.
chi a second.
Well, and I don't even know where I got that, Bob, but, the TEA, thoughts equal emotions. Now, that's your chatter right there. Your chatter drives your emotions.
Thoughts create some type of emotion.
And then your emotions drive your actions.
You're in action.
So when you break it down, when you break behavior down into a T, an E, and an A, or you give a young athlete who wants to be the GOAT, and you say, I want you to look at that task now from a T, an E, and an A. Or when you rewind and you drop the ball, I want you to rewire the T, the E, and the A to what it would have been. Well, they can grab that. So, when you're working with chatter, you throw the 6 cylinders in there, but you put that T model. Those are all mine that I needed. I mean, this stuff's hard. I mean, you got doctors studying this stuff. So, that T model, the chatter, and some other, I got a few other little tricks in the bag. I did that for me first, so I can make sense out of this stuff.
Well, and how to let it go quick, because, if you miss a job or a customer gave it to a competitor or something, and you all of a sudden angry at them, so that's your thoughts that you rejected. Your emotions is that you're upset because you felt as though you deserved the job, and then action is you're gonna in return you're gonna make him feel bad for rejecting you, and that gets you nowhere.
Right.
In the same way with a quarterback, throws an interception. It does the team no good if he's dwelling on the interception. He has to go make another pass. And so, you know, easier said than done, brother.
Yeah, man, that's why it's one of the most hardest skills you'll ever work to develop. Even if your motive is just peace.
Yes.
I need some peace. I don't need to be a
Yes.
goat. I don't need to be all this balls
That's
in the
me
air.
right now,
I
dude.
just need some peace and I need to calm down. That's why
Yeah.
breathing is a form of meditation. When you're focused on your breathing pattern and you do those 6 in and 6 out and those are long, that in and of itself, you're focusing your chatter on your breathing meditation. So, the message here is if I'm working with you, I'm going to say at least 6 times. Every 3 hours, I want you taking a break, bro. I want you doing some breathing exercise. I got some other things for you to do too, but stop and just take a breathe. Take inventory, right? You will find yourself having relaxation. I don't know what that word means to you, but peace, right? Especially if you got a lot of balls in there, a lot of stressors. Got the kids, got the work stuff, got the money stuff, So you got a lot of balls in there, a lot of stressors. You want to be stopping regular throughout the day. It's the same, these are positive mental health exercises. We always hear about mental health having a negative slant. It's always got to be negative. Well, hey, man.
No, that's on the forefront. And I tell you, like, my 3 kids are all under the age of 26, and mental health was talked about, and it was addressed. I mean, we had all 3 of them go to counseling and go to different things because I don't know how to do it. I mean, let a pro handle it, and they'll tell you right now, as young adults, that was critical. And because I'm trying to parent a child of who I was 45 years ago, and that's just, man, that's so antiquated thinking. Some things are fundamentally good, but man, they're just living entirely
It's a
different
lot different
world
today,
right
bro.
now.
It is. It's a lot different today. I mean, I needed emotional intelligence. I wanted to be a better dad. I wanted to be a better spouse. I wanted to be a better boss. And that gave me a path forward. And that's really what it is. Once you know what they are, because it's a use or lose, like you said, right? So now that I know what they are, I'm doing healthy exercise. It's like your diet. It's anything else, right? There's things you do daily to keep it sharp and ready.
So we're all products of something, okay? We all had a mom and dad or lack thereof, and they had so many skills, and then the whole legacy parenting in this, but it goes beyond parenting, is who you are as an individual. So how can emotional intelligence as people get in tune with EQ and what it is? Uh, because man, I turned 60 this year. I still analyze myself from when I was a kid. I think that's common for people to do. Not a lot, but but you ever run into that in your field, or is it always was does that ever come dredging up?
Which,
Just like people trying to kick some trauma maybe or
oh
something
yeah,
traumatic from
oh
way in
yeah,
the back
oh yeah.
and I know you're not a psychotherapist, but some of this stuff can help, man.
Well, and that's why I like the skill. So, yes, you said it right. I'm not a counselor. Counseling has a wonderful role. Not a therapist. Therapist has a wonderful role. I'm skill. So let's look at the skill is. Let's figure out some development strategies to develop that skill, which are activities, and then let's go to work. So when you talk about PTSD, right?
Oh, that's
So
a big one.
well, again, you don't have to be in the military war to have PTSD. We got children, right? They're
Yeah,
coming, walking
yeah,
around. You
wow,
got
that's
men
a
and women
big
on your
one, dude.
team right now. They got PTSD.
Oh,
Don't
no
even know it.
doubt. Yeah.
What PTSD is? It's a disorder of the amygdala. So that's that emotional side of the house. We don't want to get unpack that box, but you can, through developing your emotional intelligence skills, learn to. I call it rewiring. All we're really doing, I'm gonna make it simple, is the brain is just putting patterns. That's what it is. They're electrical patterns. And so when you have a trauma, there's the pattern. So through chatter, understanding words and pictures, I can rewire the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Big trauma takes a little while, takes a little
Mm-hmm.
longer. But what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing is we're developing skills now that when I used to have a stressful response when I thought about it, now I have less of a stressful response when I think about it. And that's where we use the emotional intelligence skills. I package chatter under mental skills.
Yeah.
So you're going to get that with me. But now, yes, we can. Hell, I mean, Bob, I'm standing at a job site on a construction site. Wanted to be a little different one morning. I had my safety meeting. I started talking about my daddy, right? I had a good relation with my daddy. My foreman didn't. Next thing you know, his head's down. He's always in the front of the meeting. Before the meeting was out, he's in the back. Right? I noticed the behavior. I went up afterwards. I said, "Hey, Sean, what? I lost you in the meeting, man. What happened?" He said, "Pro, when you said dad, I triggered. That's when I found out. He didn't have a good relationship with his daddy. That was on me, right? So if you work for me, I got your cylinders. You're going to do your cylinders." And I went
Right.
back to his cylinders. I put a little note there. Got to be sensitive about the daddy trigger because that's what it was. It was a trigger.
I think of like I know I've heard Warren Buffett, I've heard Elon Musk, I heard a bunch of people talk about a valued employee, and academic achievement is like way down the list, bro. Like they want you to be smart, but above all, we'll kind of end it where we started, and that is the old original soft skills and the people skills, the emotional intelligence, just being a general cool person, just being non-abrasive, non-toxic, non the big ones, will get you way further than 20 degrees. And let's face it, in life, because it's such a short life, bro, is that you know what do you really really want to get out of it? And in my opinion, the more of these soft skills and emotional intelligence you have, the more at peace you are, the more understanding you are, the more empathetic, the more it just goes down the list.
Higher performer.
Higher performer. Yeah.
There's 3 areas as we wrap this up. Problems. You're going to be able to get the solution because you can get the creative brain back in check when you have emotional intelligence. You know how it just hijacks us, so we just tunnel vision in on that. So problems, when you're emotionally intelligent, you can find solutions to problems faster, more effectively. Change. You're more flexible in the moment of the change when you're emotionally intelligent. And then difficult people, you're able to tolerate. You have a level of tolerate when you are emotional intelligent. So pick an area that doesn't have problems. Pick a cylinder that doesn't have change. Pick a cylinder that doesn't have... There's everywhere. There's people, problems, and change every day, every part of your life. So when you have emotional intelligence skills, like you said, you're a cooler dude to be around, but yet you in your own right, you're going to be able to perform a lot better.
A lot of it can be controlled. It's what you think. Do you mind finishing this up with that cool story I heard you say a couple times about the 2 wolves?
That's pretty popular now. I don't know. You're seeing that a lot. I'm seeing that a lot on the
Are
social
you really?
media. Yeah. So I would love to finish the story.
All right.
Yeah. So the way I tell it is, you got the elder Indian chief and the bright young warrior sitting around the fire, and their house is about like everybody's house, and nobody's talking, so they just stared at the fire. Well, on one night, this old chief starts talking about 2 wolves, and he starts describing the wolves. So the way he describes one wolf is anger and fear and rage and hatred. And then he starts to talk about the other wolf. Love, kind, gentle. And all of a sudden he just shuts up, looks back down at the fire. So this little young warrior over here, he's into the story. He's thinking about these wolves. Says they're always fighting to a death, these wolves. Next thing he says, which wolf wins? And that old chief, he looks right up at that young warrior and he says, whichever wolf you feed.
Whichever wolf you feed. I know, that just blew me away back then. It still does. I can't hear it enough. So
feed the good wolf.
Feed the good wolf, man. All right, so we got to wrap it up. PT's on a time frame here, but you mind coming back when you pass it through?
Brother, it's a blessing to be here.
All right, man. Thank you. So if you want to really dial in on some EQ, follow this guy. Tell him how to follow you, man.
Just Google, man. I'm out there, right? But you got to put Owen. There's a lot of Parrish Taylors. Parrish, Owen, Taylor, and all of it'll pop up.
Parrish Owen Taylor, and look, he's a professional. You can find him. He can come speak at your corporate events. He can one-on-one you. He's into just all kind of things. Look him up. It's well worth your while, and it's such an important topic for us all to enrich our lives with. He is also a correspondent to our new Cafe Chronicles. It's called Chatter Check. He's got us 3 or 4 in there right now. And what's your plans there? I asked you to give a 2 or 3 minute deal. What are you hoping to do on the Chronicles for Chatter Check?
Peace. Help people find peace. I don't know if that's what you're wanting to do.
No. So he just gives these little sniblets, man, and like I watched them all a couple times. Check them out. Go to the App Store. Tell all your friends. Type in Cafe Detente, Detente, and you can see the coffee bean. Press on it. Bam! You're already in the Cafe Chronicles, and you're gonna see more and more tiles, but Parrish is in there right now. But do yourself a favor, follow him, and we'll let you get back to your family, brother. Thank you, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
See y'all later.